Welcome or welcome back. This is episode 10 of the Mindful Melbourne Maker podcast. My name is Kath and I'm a knitter, knitwear designer, crochet and all-around maker living in Melbourne in Australia. This is my YouTube channel where I share with you all the things that I've been making, mostly knitting, in the last few weeks. You can find me on Instagram as Mindful Melbourne Maker and on Ravelry as kathsmartin, or you can find my knitwear designs, patterns on Ravelry under kathsmartin designs. Everything that I'll talk about today will be linked in the description box below. The details will be below, so if you're looking for any of the patterns or yarns or bags or anything, just check down in the description box and I've got all the details there for you. And feel free to like and comment and subscribe to the video if you're not already. I really appreciate all the love that you give me every time I put up a video, so feel free to do that. It's been a couple of weeks since my last, or a few weeks since my last video. I think 1 week longer than I usually would come. I think I was putting up a video every couple of weeks. It does feel like a lot. It does feel quite frequent, particularly considering how many videos and podcasts there are out there to keep up with. And it's been a really busy couple of weeks for me with my kids' activities. My daughter had her ballet exam, my kids had their school production, and my work has been incredibly busy. So all I've wanted to do when I come home is just knit, which is nice. But I thought I'd switch it up and maybe switch to a bit of a more of a 3 to 4 week regularity, but doesn't mean I won't jump on if I do find time in my week. So if you're worried that you hadn't seen a video from me, don't worry, it's just been really busy. So first thing is that as you know, I've been running the knit-along, the Aussie sock along, for everyone to knit socks and whatever socks you like, as long as they're Australian sock pattern designers, so Australian knitwear designers. So that knit-along was coming to an end, or has come to an end, on the 31st of August. But I did ask in the last video if everybody wanted to just keep knitting along in that knit-along, and the overwhelming majority of people said yes, absolutely, extend it. So I'll extend it through to the 30th of November. I think after that time everybody will be doing advent knitting and things in December, so we'll extend it through to the end of November. And that means that I'll pull prizes, because we did get a few donations for prizes, so I'll pull prizes for the 31st of August, so I'll pull prizes now, but I'll also pull prizes at the end of September and October and the end of November as well. So there should be plenty of opportunities for prizes. So to join in, just knit a pair of socks designed by an Australian sock pattern designer. You can also crochet. I see that somebody in the Ravelry group crocheted a pair, so fabulous, join in. And you can basically join in by popping a comment or your finished object into the Ravelry thread. There's a finished object and chatter thread in our group for this podcast on Ravelry. Or you can post the finished object or your work in progress on Instagram with the hashtag Aussie Sockalong, and I'll find your entry and you can go into the entry for prizes. So I did pull a few prizes for the end of the sockalong, or what I thought was the end of the sockalong, for the 31st of August. So I'll let you know who those winners are now. So we did get quite a few donated skeins of yarn, and we got a couple of bags from Bonnie Mabel Makes. So I've pulled a couple of winners from Ravelry and a couple of winners from Instagram. So the Ravelry winners are Ms. Swanee, or MS Swanee, which is Margaret, I think, and the other Ravelry winner is Holly Marlin. So I'll put the photos of their entries up here. So you're both winners. So if you contact me on my email address, which is below, mindfulmelbournemaker@gmail.com, or you can DM me on Instagram, that's fine. Reach out to me and I'll get your mailing address and then I'll send out your prize. And then there's 2 Instagram winners. The first one is Sugar and Spice 77, who I think is Christy. And the second winner is Duchess of Sussex. So that's also an Instagram winner. So congratulations to those 4 winners. We also had a donation from Susanna Kartinen, who is an Australian designer under the name of Sana & Co. Susanna has donated a package of 3 of her patterns, which is fantastic. And so I pulled a special winner from the Ravelry thread for that prize, and it is Yelly Knits, who I think is Danielle. So can all of those winners please reach out to me, let me know your mailing address, and I will send out your prize. So congratulations, and keep knitting along in the knit along, and there'll be more prizes available in the next few months. So the next thing before we get into the knitting, so super quickly, so a big thank you to everyone who has subscribed to this channel, because I have actually ticked over the 1,000 subscriber mark, which, you know, I'm not in it for the numbers. I just love that I've made so many friends and that I've made so many connections. But as a lot of you might know, once you click over to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, then a whole bunch of things can kick in, including that, you know, you can start to get a bit more recognition. You can get some very small amounts of money from ads and things, so it's very exciting. It's all new to me, so thank you to everyone who has subscribed, and I thought I'd do a giveaway in this episode to celebrate the 1,000 subscribers. So really just, I'm so happy that I've been able to connect with so many people and make so many friends through this channel, and you've all given me so much joy, so I thought I'd give back. So I actually, a couple of amazing Australian makers reached out to me. So Kaz from Hodgepodge Skeins reached out and congratulated me on the 1,000 subscribers, and she sent through a couple of donated prizes. So those lovely skeins, there's one, and then there's the second one. So those were donated from Kaz. And then I also heard from Lisa at 11T1 Windmills, and she's sending through a couple of little things as well that I'll pop in the prizes. So there'll be 2 winners for this giveaway, and all you need to do is comment below. Let me know what your favorite work in progress is right now that you're working on. So pop it in the comments. I'm sure there'll be lots of things that I'll then have to go and look up on Ravelry, and I'm sure will be added to my queue. So isn't it always the way? So yeah, so thank you very much everyone. I really, really appreciate all the love. So let's get to the knitting, because that's why you're here. So what am I wearing? I am wearing actually a pretty crazy make, but it's actually one of my absolute favorites. This is the Penguino by Stephen West, or West Knits. And so this is a cardigan jacket. And it's got short sleeves, but I think you can lengthen the sleeves if you want to. And this was one of my absolute favorite things that I've knit in the last couple of years. I actually knit this as a bit of a knit along with Alex from My Yarny Corner. So Alex has a podcast, she's in the UK, and she said she wanted to knit this, and it had been on my queue for a while. And so I reached out to her and said, let's knit it together, and we did. And I think it was probably, Alex is super quick. She's a bit of a monogamous knitter, so sort of gets through things quite quickly. And I think the joy of the competition just made it go really, really quickly, because I think I knit it in 2 weeks. Yes. I started and finished it in 2 weeks. And so it's a really interesting pattern because it has sizes, but the sizes are based on how many strands of yarn you hold together, what your needle size is, and then what your gauge is. So for my size, I held 2 strands of fingering weight yarn, and I used 5.5mm needles, and it came out somewhere between a large and an extra large, I think. My gauge was 17 stitches by 34 rows. So all of those details are in my Ravelry project page if you want all the details, and I've got extensive notes on this one. the yarn, because you'll see it's very crazy colours, absolutely crazy colours, and I'll put some pictures and video. So this is actually the Spice Girls collection of yarn. There were 11 colourways, and they were from Rainbows and Sprinkles in Australia. So that's an Australian dyer, and she always does excellent, really bright speckled colours, and that's these colourways, which they're just amazing colourways. Yeah, they were the Spice Girls colourways, and I've got all of the colourways listed in my Ravelry project page because I wanted to remember them, because they're mostly after songs and lyrics and things. So it was a lot of fun. I would definitely knit this again. I think when I knit it next time, I'm probably going to hold 3 strands together, and I'll probably knit longer sleeves as well. And I think that's, yeah, that's all. It's a very fun make. I really recommend it a lot. So what have I got to show you? So I showed this as a finished object last time, but I did want to just let you know that my new pattern is out. So the Brisbane socks are out on Ravelry. They're available now. So that's these ones here. So that's the Brisbane socks there. And so these ones are the ones they have a really cool chevron pattern all the way down the front. All the way down. And they've got a fleagle heel, or they've got the option for an afterthought heel or a heel flap and gusset. And they've got a really cool, smaller, dramatic chevron on the back of the leg all the way down. They're super fun. They're fingering weight. They're super fun. They're really quick to knit. It's a 2-row repeat, and it just goes really quickly. So they are out on Ravelry. Thank you. A huge thank you to all my test knitters. I had a really fun big group of test knitters. We had lots of fun in our Instagram chat, and everyone's versions of the socks look amazing. So it looks really good in self-striping, but it also looks amazing in speckled, variegated, tonal, whatever you've got. So yeah, and as a special thank you, so they're on sale at the moment if you're watching this before Sunday midnight, which Sunday is the 1st of September, I think. But if you're watching after, I will pop in a new code, a discount code for YouTube viewers. So if you pop in the code Brizzy Toes, I'll just put it here. It'll give you 10% off the pattern for a week from when I publish this video. So yeah, so that's the Brisbane socks. So head on over, give them a like, even if you're not going to buy them. I'd really appreciate you checking them out, giving them a little heart on Ravelry, and it just makes sure that other people can see them. And if you ever do, I've got more sock patterns that are swirling around in my brain, and I've sent my latest pattern off to the tech editor. And so if you do ever want to test knit for me, I tend to reach out to the group that I have used for the last couple of patterns. But if you want to be added to that group, just send me a message on Instagram, a direct message, and I'm very happy to add you to the test knit group for the next pair of socks. So yes, so I wanted to show these in particular because the yarns that I used for these I actually used for my next finished object. So these were the yarns that I used, which you'll recall from last time. So this one and this one are both, so this is self-striping. It's a self-striping with a little pink mini. Really pretty colours. And they're from Yarns with Alex. And then the other mini that I used, I've just got a little bit left. Really pretty. And that's KAL of Athena. So I've used those yarns for the Brisbane socks. So this is my one and only finished object for this episode, and it is my little finished gnome. This is Gnatty, the unexpected gnome. She's very cute. So I used up the yarns. As you can see, I used up the yarns from Yarns with Alex. That's the self-striping on the body, and the hat uses the mini, and then the beard and the nose are the Owl of Athena from Laura. And this was a mystery knit along by Sarah Shearer, or Imagine Landscapes, and it finished up this week. So the last clue came out, it's all finished, and this was actually a free knit along that she was running to promote her new book, which I'm sure at some point I'll be getting, because who doesn't love knitting gnomes? And if you haven't tried it, this is the perfect pattern to start with, because it's very straightforward. There's nothing tricky, there's no cables, there's no colour work. It's just a very straightforward gnome, super cute, very easy. You learn all the techniques, and the pattern is free. And there's lots of videos and things to show you what to do. And it's just super cute. And so it's a very fat little gnome, which is the best. And I did put when I stuffed it, so I tend to, in the parts where you might see through some of the fabric, I tend to use sort of polyfill stuffing, just because then it's light. In the middle of the body though, I tend to use yarn scraps. So it's a way to get rid of your yarn scraps, is to stuff your gnome with those. And then I actually have weighted stuffing in the bottom so that the gnome stands up really well. So yeah, so that, I think that's all I was going to say on that one. Yeah, it was a mystery knit along, so you didn't know what you were knitting. I know heaps of you also knit along with this, and all those gnomes look really, really cute. So that's my finished object for today. So yeah, sometimes there's a lot of finished objects and sometimes there's only one, but it's quality, not quantity, isn't it? So yes, so we'll put Gnatty there, and I think my daughter Molly is going to claim that one. So, works in progress. There's a lot. Have I cast on more things? Of course I have, but I have made a lot of progress on my projects. So let's go through those, because some of them I'm just absolutely loving and it's very exciting. My first one is in this bag which I made. So this is fabric just from Spotlight. The pattern for the sewing the bags is down in the description box below. And this is my sweater. This is by November Knits, and I've made a lot of progress on this since you last saw it. So I think, where was I? This is, so this is, if you haven't seen it before, it's a raglan sweater with a really, really high side split. So it's got ribbing on the front and back, but it's split up really high on the side. And it's got a lovely folded over neckband, which you can see I've done there, which is wonderful because you get that out of the way at the start, which I love. So I think last time I showed you, it was here, so this little marker here. So I hadn't split for the sleeves last time. I was still in the raglan increases, and so I finished all those raglan increases and then I split for the sleeves, and it feels like it's going to fit really, really well, which is great. So the sizing is working out nicely. And then I knit on the body, but as you can see, there's only the smallest amount of knitting on the body before you then split for the ribbing front and back, and then the ribbing goes on forever, but it's really, really fun. So this is how much I've done so far on the front, and it's just 2 by 2 ribbing. And I reckon I think you have to do maybe, I don't know, 24 centimeters or something. And I think I worked out that sort of I measured 10 centimeters. Once I'd done a bit, I measured where 10 centimeters was, and I popped one of my little sheep markers from Mavis Handmade, which I love. So I marked the spot, and then I counted how many rounds or how many rows that was for 10 centimeters. And so then I'm just putting a marker at each point so that there's 10 and there's 20, and then I think I've only got maybe 4 or 5 rows left before I bind off the front. And then once I've bound off the front, then I will go back and I will pick up pop the back stitches back on my needles. At the moment they're on one of these try-on tubing cords, which I don't tie them together. I tie little knots, and then I pop a stitch marker a little stitch marker through, because it just keeps it from slipping back through the stitches. So that's a little trick that I use, is I make a knot, but I pop a stitch marker through, and it just stops the cord from slipping back through. But I'll whiz the needle back through once I've bound off the front. I'll pick these up, and then I will do the ribbing on the back, and then all I'll have left are the sleeves. So this one is heaps of fun. I absolutely love it, and it's great kind of mindless knitting if you're just sitting on the couch watching TV and you don't want to have to think too hard, because all of my other works in progress I have to think, and I have to look, and I have to read a chart and lots of things. So this is pretty much one of my only mindless knits. So the yarn that I'm using is this Isager Jensen or Jensen yarn, and it's that there, and it is 100% wool. I got this yarn from Sunspun in Victoria. That's one of my local yarn shops, and it's in the color 11S, and I'm holding it with the Isager Silk Mohair, which is absolutely my favorite mohair. It's so soft, not at all scratchy at all, because sometimes mohair can be a little bit scratchy. It's super soft, and that's the label there, and it's in the color 11. So yeah, it's just heaps of fun. The other thing, because this yarn is non-superwash, so what I haven't mentioned before on this one is that when I finish a ball, I can actually split splice the ends together. So there's very few ends to weave in. When I get to the end of the mohair, I just knit the end in as I go, and so there's going to be very few ends. So I just split splice the ends of this, and it works perfectly. It felts together, you pull on it, and it's like there was never a join. It's absolutely perfect. So, but has anyone else used this yarn? I thought I was doing something wrong when I was winding it, because I would put it, you know, I'd unskein it. It comes in these 100-gram skeins. I'd unskein it, put it around my Swift, find an end, and start winding. And the first 2 times I did it, I thought I was doing something wrong, because I ended up with 4 ends, and I thought I must be cutting the yarn, and so I was ending up with these smaller balls. And then I realized when I got the 3rd skein out to wind it, that the skeins are actually 2 skeins kind of twisted together. And so but unless you know that, and if you're just kind of mindlessly doing it, you do kind of think, oh, what's happened here? But yes, there's 2 balls worth in each skein, the way that it's twisted up. So if that happens to you, you're not doing something wrong like I thought I was. It's totally the yarn's fault. But anyway, so that one's coming along. So I'm really hoping to finish off the front and be well progressed on the back ribbing the next time I show it, and then I can get marching on those sleeves, because yeah, I don't know if they have decreases. Actually, it'll be a fun surprise. I tend not to read ahead in patterns. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Potentially a bad thing, given what I'm about to describe to you with my next work in progress. But anyway, that's my unsweater, and that I absolutely love this project, and I think it's going to be really wearable, which is fabulous. My next work in progress is amazing. I was feeling a bit apathetic about working on it for a while, but I think that's just because I was slogging through the brioche. So this is my Starflake shawl by Stephen West. It's in a bag by Crystal Cat Stitchery, which I think her label is there. And this is one of my absolute favourite bags. It's huge, it's good size for big shawls or sweaters, and the corduroy is amazing. So you'll see that I've pulled it out, there's no balls attached. So I've reached the point, where I had to cut the yarn, and I thought I'll stop there and then I can show you. So I have finished the brioche. Woohoo! There's still a lot to go. I looked at the picture because I was like, yes, I finished the brioche. I'm amazing. It's going to be over in no time. And there's actually a lot left, but let's not worry about that, because let's celebrate the achievements, which is finishing this huge amount of brioche. So I think last time I showed you, where's my little marker? There it is. Last time I showed you, I think I was like 6 rows in to the brioche. So it's 2 colour brioche, and this section went on forever. It was just endless. Repeat, when you get to the end, I'll repeat this 4 more times, and then repeat it 6 more times, and then repeat it 4 more times. Anyway, perseverance. I'm there, and I finished the brioche section. And I also did a sneaky next section, because the next 2 sections are these little wing bits, which is hardly any stitches compared to the, you know, 450 or something that's on there at the moment. You're just working back short rows back and forth in 2 colors along the edge. You cut the yarn, and then you go and do that same thing on the other end, but I haven't done that yet, so I need to pick up or start knitting and do short rows and do that same wing that I've done there. So I've done really well. I've progressed. I was about halfway through the brioche, really regretting that I'd chosen the brioche option, because one of my friends who's knitting along, Sian, the obsessive maker on YouTube and Instagram, she is making an amazing version. It's got so many pretty colours, it's got mohair, and she chose, there's an option to choose garter stripes. Amazing, relaxing, mindless, and hers looks amazing. And I was super regretting halfway through, why did I choose brioche? But I'm glad I stuck with it. I'm glad I did, because I'm loving the fact that, because I've stuck with the just 2 colours, I don't have any mohair, so this just really creates the interest, I think, in my shawl. Speaking of the yarn, just as a reminder, so my yarn is all tangled. So I have, my main colour is this amazing speckled yarn, which actually I'll show, yeah, this one. So it's this yarn from 3 Cats Yarn, which is it gonna, there. And it's just got the most amazing fluoro speckles in it. And it's from 3 Cats Yarn. And it's called Graffiti. And it's just a 4-ply 75-25 fingering weight. It's 425 meters, so it's quite good yardage. And then my contrast color, which is the most contrasty color you could possibly find in the universe, is this amazing fluorescent glowing pink. It actually, it's really hard to tell, but it actually does just absolutely glow. And so there's the label. It's from Woollen Works, and it is Woollen Works, and it's the Barbie colorway. So this is the Barbie colorway, and again, it's just a fingering weight. I think it's 75-25. It might be, no, it's 80-20. So it's 80% merino, 20% nylon, 400 meters. And yeah, so those 2 colors together are just giving a lot of happiness. and joy. So yeah, so I've still got a long way to go, but I'll just keep working my way through the sections. I've got this section to go next, do those short rows, which goes pretty quick, and then get on to the really, really big border. But yeah, so really enjoying that one. Anything else? I'm using a 3.75mm needle. Oh, so this was, as you know, this was a mystery knit along from years ago, which I'm diving back and every now and then knitting one of the old mystery knit alongs from West Knits that I haven't knit. But he's, of course, you'll know, Stephen has come out with the new mystery knit along for this year. It's called Go Go Dynamo. Of course, I'm absolutely going to join in because I love the mystery knit alongs. I love the community. It really pushes me to finish a massive shawl in a short amount of time. But I find that I do a lot better with finishing it and slogging through the bits that maybe are a little bit more tedious if I have a bit of a theme. So last year I knit a theme that was sort of all pinks, and it was a Barbie movie theme. The year before I knit a House of the Dragon Targaryen theme for the Twists and Turns shawl, and so this year he's come out with the, you know, this is the colours that you need 2 colours. So I've come up with a bit of a theme based on Rings of Power, which has just started season 2, and we were very much looking forward to it. We love Lord of the Rings, we love all of that fantasy stuff, so we'll be watching that over the next couple of months. So I thought, well, while that's going on, I've grabbed a few inspiration shots and popped it on a bit of a mood board, and I've got my theme. So I'll be looking at getting some yarn in some really deep, lovely teal, and then like a silvery white as the other colour. And so looking very much forward to the mystery knit along. That's what I'm doing. So let me know in the comments whether you're joining into the KAL as well this year. So my third work in progress. So this is a big one for me because this is a whole bunch of new or relatively new things for me. And so this is very much a mindful project. I'm being really sort of slow and methodical, working my way through, making sure that I'm doing things correctly. I'm not trying to speed through. But this is in one of the bags from Bonnie Mabel Makes. So that's the label there. And this was a bag that lovely Gail gifted to me. And it was perfect for holding my Alma cardigan. So this is the Alma cardigan by Sana & Co, Susanna Kartinen. And there's a Alma knit along going on at the moment. The Alma KAL, I think is the hashtag. I'll pop it there. So there's a whole bunch of us that are knitting either the Alma cardigan or Alma vests, other versions at the moment. And a few of us did get the kits from Louie and Lola yarns from the Bendigo sheep show as well, which is where I got my kit from. So I'm using the Louie and Lola Possum DK yarn, which is absolutely gorgeous. It's very, very soft, beautiful to work with. Also really nice to frog, which I'll get to, don't worry. But of course the colours, I've got a real pink theme going on with a lot of my whips at the moment, but that's all right. I'm totally here for that. So I kicked off, and you will have seen the pattern, but there's the picture as well. So I don't really use printed out patterns. I find them kind of difficult. I use them on my iPad when I'm but I've got it there in case. And so the colours from Louie and Lola in the kit were these colours. So there's a beautiful natural colour of the possum. There's this colour which I think is called Aurora Australis. Then there's this colour which I think is called Sugar. No, this is Swiftly. So it's like quite a bright pink. And then this is the last colour which is called Sugar. So it's sort of more of a muted, the lighting is really terrible today. But yeah, so they're my colours. Now I have seen other people that got this kit that are swapping these two colours around. So they're doing the darker colour, then this colour, then the bright. I think it's going to look good either way. What tipped it over the scales for me is that there's more, you see more of this colour than you do this in the pattern, and I love this bright pink, love it. So we'll see more of that, and then it'll fade into that, and then eventually you just have the natural colour. So those are the yarns, and they are, so they're DK, so they're 8 ply, and they're 80% merino and 20% possum fur. So it is a colorwork cardigan knit in the round. It has to be steeped at the end, which will be the very first time I do that. And it also has a tubular bind cast on, and then it has corrugated ribbing. So there's all the things are going on. It's super complicated, but this is where I'm up to at the moment. Oh, it's hard to sort of show because it's curling, but that's where I'm up to at the moment. So there is a bit of a saga. There's a bit of a saga with this. So there was a bunch of us that are knitting it together, and we all sort of cast on, I think the night after the KAL started, and I watched the video to remind myself about tubular cast on because I've only done it a few times and I have to sort of watch the video. But I read through the pattern. There's a lot of information in the pattern. It's really great if you really love patterns that have absolutely everything you'll ever need to know in the pattern. There's so much information in there. It's really great. But it meant there was a lot to read before I got started. So I read all of that, made sure I had all my needle sizes ready. I wound my yarn, watched the video for the tubular cast on, and then I cast on, you know, a lot of stitches because it's all the way around. And I did the cast on and I started off and I thought, oh, I'm doing so well, isn't this great? And then one of the other people who's knitting along actually with the same kit messaged me and said, oh, did I do something wrong? Because I cast on with the contrast colour. And I looked down and I realised I had cast on with the main colour, and you'll see that the cast on, I could have left it and it would have been really, really pretty, really beautiful. But the cast on actually has you cast on in the contrast colour, which then sort of bleeds into the corrugated ribbing in a really, really pretty way. And so that was fine. I think I'd only knit 4 rows into the corrugated ribbing, and I thought it's fine, I'll just redo it, because what I'd actually done as well, I did something wrong when I did the tubular cast on. When I came to actually do the, you know, knit one, slip one, knit one, the setup rows, I realized all my knits were the wrong way. So they were seated the wrong way around on the needles, which meant that instead of just knitting, I needed to knit through the back loop, which is fine. I just did that, but I realized I must have done something wrong in the tubular cast on. So when I realized that I'd used the wrong yarn, I ripped it all out. And my husband was sitting there going, I can't believe you're ripping it out. I said, it's fine. I'm not that far in. I want to get it right. I want to use the right yarn, and I want to try this tubular cast on again. So watch the video again, realized that I was doing the purl bit. I didn't have enough kind of twists around the yarn to do the purl. And so I started again in the right yarn, and it all worked out perfectly. The tubular cast on worked out perfectly. So it is a case of patience and perseverance, and you'll get there in the end. And so I'm really pleased, and I'm just trying to be really conscious because this is my first colourwork garment. I've knit colourwork in socks, but my first colourwork garment, I'm really trying to be quite conscious of not knitting too tightly because I'm an English knitter, so I tend to knit more tightly than loosely. So yeah, just trying to keep those floats nice and loose. So there's all my floats there. And I was very excited when I finished up with the contrast color 1 and I've made it into that bright pink contrast color. And I'm just working my way around. I can do sort of 3 or 4 rows in a sitting before I sort of, you know, lose my concentration. I need to pick up something that's stockinette. But yeah, it's lots of fun, and the yarn is really, really beautiful and soft. I'm using the suggested needles, which is I think 3.5mm to cast on, 4mm for the ribbing, and then 4.5mm for the colour work. And I did swatch, which is here. It's my swatch, where I used, I think, wherever the bottom is, oh there, I used 4mm on the bottom and 4.5 on the top, just to see how I went. And yeah, I realized the suggested needles were going to be fine, and so I'm knitting a size 4, and I think that's it. So yeah, so that's my Alma cardigan. So lots of fun, lots of challenges in that one, but I'm really pleased. I'm just taking it slowly, and we'll see how I feel about it when I get to the steeking. So my next work in progress is a pair of socks, which I've got in this bag from Shan's Yarns, which I bought from the Bendigo sheep show, Australian sheep show. And it's this really cool one skein sock bag that you sort of put on your wrist and you take it out. So I love this bag, it's great. And I cast on a pair of socks. I do have a couple of pattern ideas, pattern socks that I'm working on of my own design, but I did want just a plain stockinette because I have so many pattern texture and color work and things going on. I just wanted a plain pair of vanilla socks to knit on during meetings and things like that. And so I pulled out, in the spirit of the Aussie sock along, I pulled out a pattern that I had in my library that I hadn't knit. So this is a pattern from Helen Stewart, and they're called the Studiolo, I think Studiolo socks by Helen Stewart, Curious Handmade. And they were part of the Handmade Sock Society knitting pattern pack that she put out last year. So she released a pattern every month. I knit every single pattern except the last one. So in the month they came out, I knit every pattern. I think there were 5 or 6 patterns, so it was a pretty full-on year for pattern socks. But when I got to the last one, I was just kind of over it. But I thought I'll come back to it, and I have. So what I did, because the Studiolo socks are actually mostly plain vanilla, but the bit of interest is actually the cuff, and it's got a really, really pretty lace cuff. And so I pulled out an amazing skein of self-striping yarn from Freckled Whimsy. So that's the label there, and it's the Honeydukes colorway. Honeydukes on the Kismet base, which is a base I hadn't used from Freckled Whimsy before, and I really wanted to try it. So it's her 80-20 base, so it's 80% merino, 20% nylon, and it's quite a plump fingering weight. So I think it has less than 400 meters in 100 gram skein. And so it's it feels a little bit thicker than her other base, which is 75-25, which I really like as well. But it's quite nice, but the socks they do feel a little bit thicker, but it's fine. So I pulled that out to use for the vanilla part of the sock. And the other part of the sock, I am using a mini from Fibresmith, which is one of my local yarn shops. So it's her watercolor sock base, and it's in the color Kingfisher, which is a beautiful dark sort of bluey teal, and that's the colorway there. It's not really showing up at all very well, but so that's the mini that I'm using, and I'm knitting the socks concurrently, so not 2 at a time, because I'm not here for that. The yarn management in 2 at a time socks, I'm no good at that. So I knit 2 socks at the same time, but I knit them concurrently on, in this case, 9-inch circulars. So I knit the cuffs on magic loop, and then I have switched to 9-inch circulars for the vanilla sock part. And look at the stripe repeat, isn't it so pretty? So I'm loving that. And so the Studiolo part of the pattern is really only just this cuff. I just used this cuff pattern, and so I have a nice pretty lacy cuff, which I use the pattern for, and I use magic loop, and then I switched to just my Melbourne socks pattern for the rest of the sock, because it's just a vanilla sock, the rest of the sock, and I prefer my kind of recipe. So that's if you haven't used that pattern before, the Melbourne socks is just my free pattern on Ravelry for vanilla socks, fingering weight socks, and it's got heel flap and gusset and also afterthought heel instructions in there. And so for these ones I'm going to do an afterthought heel. So I'm just knitting 2 tubes. I'll pop on a toe on each end. I'm going to knit them nice and long so that I can wear them with my docks, and then pop a toe on the end and then cut in a heel, and that'll be that. But yeah, just a cool pair of vanilla socks that am mostly taking to knit in the car or during meetings or other things where I don't have to pay too much attention to what I'm doing with my hands. So yeah, so that is my 4th work in progress. My 5th work in progress is in this bag by Patel Knits. So this is the Doggo bag, if you're looking. I think she might still have them available, Doggo, but covered in dogs, which I'm a dog person. So this one was a bit of a spur of the moment cast on, and I probably shouldn't have cast it on, but like, there are no knitting police, cast on what you want, so I did. So I'm using this beautiful yarn that I got from Bendigo Woollen Mills, and I showed in my last episode, I think. And this is luxury Bendigo Woollen Mills luxury 8 ply, so it's a DK, and it's in the color Boysenberry. That's there. So I've got 4 balls of this, and I was actually inspired to cast this on because there's a knit along being run by another Australian podcaster called Hayley, and the knit along is for the Salty Days sweater by Kudavakika, I think. And so I had a look at that pattern. It's nice. It's not, I haven't necessarily popped it in my queue. I like it, but I wasn't necessarily desperate to cast it on. But it did remind me that a sweater that I was desperate to cast on was the Petite Knit pattern, the Storm sweater. And so while I'm not participating in the Salty Days KAL, I'm like Salty Days adjacent. So I'm participating in spirit by knitting the Storm sweater by Petite Knit. And it's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted to cast on. So there's color work, and then I've got one that's, you know, mohair and ribbing, and then this is just texture all day long, and I love knits and pearls texture. Love it. And so this is where I'm up to, and it looks fabulous. I think it's coming up a little bit redder in the camera, but it's actually this sort of really beautiful berry, dark berry pink, sort of a boysenberry color, really. But yeah, so this is the back panel. It starts with the back panel, and you knit short rows back and forth, and then you knit, you know, you're following a chart for the texture. And at the moment I'm increasing, which will be on the back, increasing along the sort of where the armhole is. I imagine once I've finished that, what I'll be required to do is pick up along the shoulder and then knit sort of over each shoulder, then join them, knit down the front, and then join in the round and knit in the round, and then pick up for the neck, pick up for the sleeves. I think that'll be the process. But yeah, but it's super quick. It's very potato chippy. You just want more because I just finished this section, and then I'll just finish this section, and yeah, it's very fun. So I'm using the suggested needles, which are 3.5 and 4mm in the pattern. My gauge, I didn't do a gauge swatch because you start knitting flat. I just thought I'll just start, and I will use the back piece as my gauge swatch. And if I have to start again, I have to start again. Luckily, my gauge was spot on, perfect. I've knit petite knit patterns before. I know I can pretty much hit gauge on her patterns. So I just cast on with the size that I thought. My gauge is perfect, so I can keep going. Isn't that the best kind of project where you can kind of skip corners and it all works out really well? So yeah, so that's where I'm up to. So yeah, it's got the short rows at the top, which is really interesting the way that they do that. And I did miss some garter rows. This first set of garter rows in the pattern here. There's some garter rows which I did miss, and had to sort of rip back a few rows, but it wasn't. I was just too excited and wasn't really paying attention to the garter rows, but I got them in. And I'm on a roll now, so I'm really enjoying this one, and I'm looking forward to having it so that it's looking more like a sweater next time. Anything else on that one? No. So yeah, so check out the knit along if you want to join that knit along with Hayley. Otherwise, join me and knit the storm sweater. Not a knit along, just, you know, having fun. And really, it was just an excuse to cast on something that I really wanted to knit for a while. So finding other people to assign blame to is really the best part. So yeah, so that's my 5th work in progress. And then my last one, I did show last time, it's in this basket, and it is a crochet garment. So I grabbed all my scraps that were of a pink and mohair nature. So the yarns are all singles generally. So the fingering weight scraps in all the pinky colours are all singles, merino singles, and I'm holding those double, so 2 strands of fingering weight with a strand of coordinating-ish mohair. So I've kind of got a range of colours here, and I'm sort of holding them together in ways that are aesthetically pleasing. And then I'm using as my sort of drawing them all together, like outside colour, these two. So I've got a skein of bare mohair, which I'm holding together with this DK. So I've got, for the outside edge, it's a DK 8-ply plus a mohair, and for the inside parts of the granny squares, it's 2 strands of fingering plus a mohair. And this is Lovely Little Yarns, Sprinkles on Top. So I've got a couple of these sort of very vanilla with sprinkles kind of colours going at the moment, but it's really, really pretty. And they're crocheting up really nicely into granny squares. So the hook that I'm using is a clover hook. It's a 4.5mm. That's my preferred crochet hook. And I think last time I'd maybe made 4 or 5 squares, and now I have a whole stack of granny squares. How many do I have? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Yay! I think I need 27. So this is the, I haven't even said what the pattern is. It's the Agnes Sweater Vest by Bethany Lynn. It's a free pattern, but it takes you off to a website where it's basically on a blog. So you sort of scroll through, but it's essentially you make a bunch of granny squares. The granny squares have to end up as, I think, 4.5 inch square I think. Whatever the measurements are, my granny squares are perfectly on measurement, so they should be fine. It's kind of one size, but you can adjust it based on doing smaller or larger granny squares. You can also add more granny squares, which is actually what I'm doing. I'm going to put an extra granny square around the side and then just do a couple of granny corners to sort of tie it in. There's notes and details for my friend's yarn who did exactly that modification to this pattern, the Obsessive Maker on Ravelry. So she did the same thing, so check out her project page. But I'll be doing that just to give a little bit more room to the vest, because I don't want it to be super tight vest. But this is what my granny squares are looking like. So I've got a bunch of them here. Ooh. So you can actually see. And then I think some of them are really pink, and then some of them are more subtle. So this one's like quite a dark one. And then this one's quite a light one. And you'll see for some of them I've already sewn in the ends or woven in the ends, and then for others they're kind of a delight of ends. But that's okay, it doesn't take very long to sew in the ends. So the rest of them are here, and so I've got 15 altogether. I need 27, and so I'll just keep, every now and then I make a couple of squares, pop them on the pile, and so I'll get to the point where I've made the number that I need, and then I will use this color to join them all, and then I'll use it to also knit the ribbing for the neck, the sleeve holes, arm holes, and the hem on the bottom. So yeah, so that will be fun, and I'm sure that I'll have it finished just in time for the very warm weather to start in Melbourne, and I won't be able to wear it, but that's okay. I'll have it for next year. So the steps for the way that I do my granny squares, I've read through the pattern, the instructions in the pattern. They're just slightly different to what I would usually do, so I have copied and pasted in the way I do my granny squares into my project page. If you want to follow those notes at all, they're in there. So yeah, so that's all the projects I wanted to show you. I did have a couple of acquisitions which I wanted to show you because everybody loves yarn. So I saw this on Instagram, and this is from Shaz at Dizzy Devil Yarn, and Shaz actually was a test knitter for me for the last 2 patterns, but she dyes a lot of self-striping yarn, and she popped this colorway up on Instagram. Up on Instagram, and I had to have it. It's amazing. So it's pink and 2 types of green, and then the white stripe is actually white with sprinkles, which, you know, I seem to be quite obsessed with at the moment. But yeah, isn't that colorway just amazing? So this colorway is called Melon Head, and I got it in the 4-ply 75-25 for socks. So very excited about knitting that up. So thank you, Shaz, for dyeing such an amazing colorway. And the other thing I got was, I think I've told you I have subscribed to a monthly club being run by Susan from Ash and Eve, and it's called the Fade Mystery Club or something. I can't remember, but it's based on fairies, fae. But the colour inspiration looks really pretty, so I'll get a skein each month of that, and that'll be really lovely. And it should, once you put them all together, it'll be a fade. She actually did this last year, and she put the inspiration pic and the yarn from last year's fade up on Instagram. And I was like, No, I wish I got last year's. I had huge FOMO because the yarn was absolutely beautiful. And I think I commented on Susan's post and said, actually what I want is a time machine to go back and order the last year's yarn as well. And she said, it's in my shop as a pre-order. So of course I had to go into her shop and also get last year's fade. So it was a bit of a splurge, but I think you'll agree the colours are absolutely amazing. I'm just going to leave it in this bag because you can see the colours, you can see the yarn, and it's easier to hold up. But I mean, look at those colours. So I'm still deciding whether I will use these for a garment or whether I will use them for some sort of massive Stephen West shawl. But yeah, the colours are just absolutely spectacular. And so this was the fade from last year, and yes, I splurged and got that. So thank you, Susan, for amazing yarn. And that's it. That's all I have at the moment. So thank you very much for joining. I'm glad I could share all my projects with you, and I hope you're all knitting on things that you love and that you're casting on whatever you want with abandon. You have my permission. And I hope to see you in the next episode. Thanks everyone, and happy making. Bye.